past the hour of 7 o'clock. April is Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month, observed right here in Trinidad and Tobago. And this morning we're speaking to Ahelia Ramdas, Team Lead of Assessment at the Children's Authority, to learn more. Good morning, Ahelia, and welcome.
Good morning, and thank you so much for having us on the program once more.
It's a pleasure to have you back with us this morning. One of the first things we need to get into is this increasing trend where caregivers, and let's say other family members as well, may lean towards abuse, not understanding that children will have developmental concerns, issues, and so much more. What do you think is one of the main things that causes this to happen?
So we've observed when we receive reports of child maltreatments and we go in, we get the basic reports, whether it's a case of neglect, physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse. We go in, we begin our investigations, and we begin to realize that there are the underlying causes that has brought the children to our attention. And one of those, as you mentioned, is that lack of understanding of developmental delays, developmental diagnoses, whether the child has gone undiagnosed or there's just still that gap where the parents, caregivers, they don't quite understand what it means and what the expectation for that child actually is or should be. I know your previous guest was speaking on autism, which is a very good example, and I'm happy that she came before me. She mentioned, when we see children with autism flapping their hands or moving about, they can't control themselves. And oftentimes there's that gap where persons don't really understand that children with specific disorders or delays, they may not understand what you're asking of them.
Right.
So they're not following through with the instructions the way you hope or anticipate, or they don't have the skills requisite to follow through with what you're asking of them, which leads to your own frustration, your own sense of feeling overwhelmed or angry, and then you take that, you turn it around, you lash out on the child that simply cannot follow through or does not understand.
Right.
And so we are noticing that for developmental delays, developmental disorders, emotional dysregulation, other emotional and behavioral disorders as well, where just it's going undiagnosed, or persons, because they don't understand or recognize the signs, they're reading it as disrespect, they're reading it as the child, having their own way or choosing to be defiant. And so they're not taking their children in to get properly diagnosed, or even with a diagnosis, they don't quite understand what to do with that.
Right. Now, of course, the Children's Authority will get these sorts of details or these sorts of records based on reports. There will be a host of persons who simply don't make reports altogether. Correct. And the same happens when we talk more specifically about abuse of the sexual nature and physical violence as well. Give us a little bit of foundation, if you will, as to what sort of statistics we're dealing with. When we talk about reported cases of abuse particularly, what are the numbers like for Trinidad and Tobago?
So in 2024, we had 5,452 or so cases reported to the Children's Authority. We're talking about a monthly average of about 450 to 55 cases per month, and that's reported. That's what we're aware of. That's persons picking up the phone and making that call and bringing it to our attention. And oftentimes when we do investigate, because we investigate every report that comes to us, when we go in, we uncover other forms of abuse. We uncover other children within the family unit or within the family yard or within the community that are also experiencing forms of abuse that just simply did not come to us via a report. But here it is, through an investigation. So I can say that while the numbers are alarming, and they have increased over the years since 2015 when the Children's Authority began operations, it's a concern that doesn't seem to be going anywhere.
Now, I asked specifically for the numbers because of that, a new development, I put it in air quotes, would be the cyber crimes specifically towards children. It's an area that other entities have brought to the fore that I think we are lacking data on still, because we are still developing those realms. How is the Children's Authority faced or navigating that challenge altogether?
So we have seen an increase in attacks via online medium. I think it would have skyrocketed. I don't know if that's the right term to use, but it would have definitely increased over the period of COVID.
Right.
Simply because we were all shut in and more online, so there's more and more access, and predators, like everything else in the world,
Evolved with the time.
with the time and evolved to face their challenge, which is limited access, and so they went online as well. And so we have that online grooming increasing, where predators are identifying children who seem to lack the social support or who seem to lack the self-confidence and self-awareness, and targeting them, isolating them from their family members, and then using that opportunity to slip in the requests for images or sexual favors, and really, getting our children out from behind the computers then and into the physical realm where they continue to take advantage. We are seeing things like sextortion and sexting and, all of these things that are leading more and more to issues where children are now being, what's the right word? We're seeing an increase in that erosion of self-esteem and that fear that someone's going to come out there, post something that I've shared.
Of course.
Persons asking for money, persons
Right.
are asking for more and more favors, and we're seeing that bullying tied to that as well, because in addition to the grooming and the exploitation, now a picture of me has come onto media, and now I'm being bullied in school, I'm being made fun of, and that's giving us a rise in, of course, the suicidal ideation and the attempts and, other types of behaviors that are detrimental to our children.
I ask this because the correlation is sometimes not there for the average person. Not only do we have to look at the actual child abuse where we could see the physical marks or the
Correct.
ones that we can report, but cybercrimes being an additional factor. You guys have your hands full, and in terms of the awareness, the conversation needs to continue in a very deep way. We may not have the time to cover it all, but I just wanted to get an idea of where we are with that. Now, in terms of the actual actions we can take, whether it be cybercrimes, whether it be physical, or even the caretakers making reports, or persons who see the caretakers abusing children making reports. What are the actions that we as citizens can take, whether we are the caretakers or we are the witnesses to some of these crimes?
So, of course, we like to say that child protection is everyone's business. And for me personally, I choose to view that as every citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, whether you're perpetrating child abuse or maltreatment in any form, or whether you know someone or you're just the average citizen walking around, we have to start taking ownership of this problem that is escalating in a very big way, and we have to start challenging these attitudes and beliefs. We have to have a societal mindset change if we want to see something real happening, and that means when you become aware of something, pick up the phone and make the report. I want to assure public that if you make a report in good faith, it's investigated and it's not substantiated as something that is valid to be followed up via investigation. There's not going to be harm to you because you've made the report in good faith, right? I want to say challenge the attitudes and beliefs in your personal circles. So you can't speak out against child abuse, so you can't expect there to be change if you're condoning it right here. If you know your good friend, or you know your cousin, or you know your other family member in the home is perpetrating some form of child maltreatment, and you remain silent out of shame or protecting the family name, or all that's doing is putting a child at risk or putting children at risk for physical harm, for emotional harm, for just putting them off what should be their natural developmental trajectory and giving them the best shot at achieving their potential.
Ahelia, listening to this entire discussion this morning and also going back to the statistics that you would have mentioned, one thing we know is abuse, whether it's sexual abuse, whether it's cyberbullying, that leads to so many different factors with children themselves. But one of the things that we do need to touch on are the causative factors. What is the root cause? Because it all starts at the same foundation in some form or fashion. In your investigations, does it go back into the home and seeing maybe if there are cycles that have happened over the years, and how do we identify those ourselves?
So when we go through the investigations, we see some common factors that keep popping up, and these are the things that, they are contributing factors to this issue of child abuse. So we see that persons who themselves have a personal history of abuse are that more likely to perpetrate abuse, right? They've gone through that themselves, and so it's a learned behavior. And they continue it because we have this mindset, well, I went through this and I turned out okay. So, there's that basic misconception of what discipline really is, and we conflate it and confuse it with punishment. And so that's that harmful belief that has also continued along the way. So it's your personal history, it's the attitude and belief that punishment and discipline is the same thing when in fact it's not. It's, substance use challenges that are popping up. So you're more at risk, you come home, you're lost control of yourself, and so something triggers you and you have a reaction that may be overblown. Persons not being aware of their own personal triggers and frustrations, that lack of support. So you are frustrated. Parenting is hard. It's a very difficult job. You have the responsibility for this child and for children, to put them on the right path, to keep them safe, give them everything they need. And so when you become frustrated and overwhelmed, you take it out based on other factors as well. So many things that contributes.
Yeah. And in light of that, as you would have mentioned, of course, we're looking at history, we're looking at contributing factors that are similar throughout different communities and households. Nationally, do we have resources in place to be able to deal with this? How do you and your organization perhaps do outreach, if so, to assist?
So we continue to do sensitizations, we continue to go into communities, to go into the religious institutions, the schools, the NGOs that would have us, and to do sensitizations and to bring that information to public. We continue to say that there are resources available through NGOs like Childline and other agencies, through National Family Services, through Student Support Services, which is a division of the Ministry of Education, through the Children's Authority. There are so many avenues that provide information but also help and support that we need to make ourselves more aware of. Something is happening with us, and you take your child to the health center, you take your child to the doctor, ask, where can I get more help for this? And, you're going to be provided with that information. Pick up the phone, call the Children's Authority. We're going to give you that information. Go online, do a search. The information is going to come up. There are so many avenues that is. People believe it's not accessible. People believe that, it's not available, but it is. We may not have the wealth of resources we would like to have, but it is there and it can be accessed, and I want to encourage people to do so.
Well, we will be encouraging them all month long as you're going to continue, at least in terms of the Child Abuse Awareness and Prevention Month observances will continue for the rest of the month, even if it's not you per se. But what is one of the main messages that you'd like people to take away this month as we shed that light on this cause?
One of the main messages is, of course, child protection is everyone's business. We have to, as a society, take ownership of this problem and take active steps to making the changes we know are going to make a difference for one child, 10 children, the 5,000 children, whose cases have been reported. We all have a part to play. It may seem insignificant and small, but it is not, when you consider the balance is the well-being and, at times, the life of a child.
Absolutely necessary, and I'm so glad that you are helping us lead the charge, Haley Around, as the team lead of assessment at the Children's Authority, as we continue to observe Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month here on The Now. We'll be back after these messages.